Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll be taking you through a Brutality Skirmish Wargame battle report, but this time it's Gauntlet mode. In this video I'll be playing out the Brutality battle report for Gauntlet mode, and I'll be covering the rules as we go. But if you'd like to see an overview of the rules, then I've done a separate video that'll introduce you to Bestiary and Gauntlet mode book and just talk through exactly what it entails. You don't need to watch it, but it'll just be helpful if you want to have a little overview, but I will be covering everything here in the video today. Ragnar and his crew are back, but this time they'll be taking part in the Gauntlet. But this isn't any gauntlet, this is Lord Dreadmore's gauntlet, and as one of the rarest things in the brutal realm, this spectator sport is broadcast across to all the inhabitants. This is a solo game, and we'll be using a lot of AI, so there's a lot to set up and a lot to go through, but I'll cover it step by step as we work our way through the battle report. So here we've got Ragnar and his crew. If you like to pause it, you can check out their cards. These will tell you all their stats and special abilities. As it's recommended to take 5 to 6 points into the gauntlet, we've gone for 5 points, and that's going to include Ragnar Iron Fist, Ingrid, Edgar, and Inga the Witch. Figgy's going to sit this one out. If you've been following along with the other battle reports, you'd have seen he's like the sniper of the crew, but he'll be joining us again in a couple of weeks for the next battle report. So that takes care of step 1 of the gauntlet. We've created our warband as normal with the suggested 5 to 6 point list, and Ragnar and his crew are going to total 5 points. Here comes the really fun part. Now we're going to select 20 models to be our NPC creatures. All of these NPC creatures are taken from this Bestiary and Gauntlet book, so I'll be using models that match them as close as I can. So I've got a nice selection of models from my different games, and if you're into Dungeons and Dragons, then you're going to love this, because there's a lot of similarities there, and so you may have a nice collection of models that you can use in the game too. Put the models out in an order of 1 to 20, and I'll be using a 20-sided dice to select. However, the game is based around the D10 dice, and it says to roll 2, add them together, and then that's going to be the score you use for your choice. You're going to need a board now, so in step 3 we're going to take a 20 by 20 inch play area and mark the boundaries. So I picked this board. I think it really suits the narrative and theme of the game, and then I've just made a note of where the boundaries are going to be for when I set up the NPC characters and play out the game in the later stages. For step 4, we need to prepare 4 pieces of 4-inch long wall terrain that's going to block line of sight. So I've chose to use these doors, and I'm going to be putting 2 together, so it's roughly 4 inches across, and then even though the doors are open on some of them, I'm still playing it that they do block line of sight and you can't go through them. So I think this really matches the theme again and the narrative of the game. In step 5, we note the 4 sides of the arena. So north is where the gate is, and then we'll have east, and we'll work our way around, going south at the bottom, and then west on the far left-hand side board. In step 6, we just note the centre of the board and mark it if necessary. I'm going to use this big flaming disc in the middle. I think it's perfect. So it's a little bit off-centre, but it's going to work just great, and again, fits in with the whole vibe of the game. And then in step 7, you deploy your entire warband within 4 inches of the centre. I'm using this disc as my guide and making sure I face them into each direction so they're ready for the onslaught. That's the setup for the gauntlet mode complete. Now there are a few more stages we need to do, so when we activate each round, we have to follow a few steps. So I'll be going through those and covering them as each round comes along. The game will take place over 5 rounds, and all Ragnar and his crew have to do to win is purely survive. They just have to make it to the end of round 5, and only one of them has to make it. Ragnar and his crew have entered the arena, and they're about to take their place in the centre as the gates slam shut. So now it's time to begin round 1 of Brutality Skirmish Wargame Gauntlet mode. At the beginning of each round, we roll on the event table, and this is number 2, the Flood. The water rushes in And all players must make a dexterity check or be smashed against the west wall. Models who are swept away take a crushing wound chart roll with saves allowed at a place along the west wall. So I'm rolling here for all the dexterity checks and then also for the wound roll, and then placing the models that fail, like Inga the Witch here, against that wall. Ragnar and Inga are pushed against the wall, but Edgar and Ingrid escape the water's powerful surge. In the arena, the walls move every round, so we're going to roll to see where they end up and use the pointy part of the D10 dice to tell us which direction to move these in inches. So here we go, I've set those up, and you can see this was 2 in that direction, and then all the other walls have followed the direction of the dice. So we do this for each round. Now let's roll to see which NPC creatures are going to come on. So with a D20, the first creature is number 4, and that's going to be the skeleton. So we've got to go up to half the point value of our little warband here, so we've got to get to 2.5 points, and on a roll of 16 we're going to bring in the lion. Now I'm using the bear stats, and I think that's going to work really nicely. Now we roll to see their behaviour, so we're going to deploy this skeleton on the north wall, and he's going to hate the closest model, which is going to be Ingrid. Let's roll for the lion now, and this is number 5. That's going to deploy on the west wall, and if we had more NPCs to bring, they would deploy there on the west wall too, and they hate the closest model, which is going to be Ragnar in this case. Now we're ready to start fighting in round 1. And I made a little mistake with the placement. They can't be within 2 inches, so I'm just going to move along that wall 2 inches away from Ragnar, keeping with the closest one. And the NPC is going to activate first, and he's going to get stuck in to that model that he hates, so he's charging towards Ragnar, and now he's going to make his melee attack. So they face off against each other, and we're rolling for the lion now. And the lion makes 3 successful hits there, so now we have to roll to save. 2 of those saves fail, but that save and roll of a 1 counts as 2 critical saves, so that'll cancel out 2 of the hits, and so Ragnar is only going to take 1 point of damage now. That brings him down to 2 hit points remaining, and you can roll at the same time for these attacks, but I like to do them separately. So now Ragnar is going to make an attack back against the lion now, and with 1 successful hit, that save isn't going to make it. It's got to be less than the save, so that's 1 point of damage on the lion too. The lion is armed, so Ragnar has to take a roll on the wound chart, and it was 5 under crushing. So he's now got a -2 to his willpower, and at the end of the fight phase, he's pushed back 2 inches. Now it's time for 2 of the main player characters to activate. So it goes 1 NPC activation and 2 player activations. And so Ingrid has now run and then charged into battle, and she's going to make an attack. She should have got an extra attack roll there for charging, but it wasn't added on, but she did get a 1, so that is going to be a critical hit. So that's 2 hits and no saves made whatsoever. That's going to take out the lion, but they do get to retaliate before they're removed. So the lion makes an attack and is unsuccessful, so no damage to Ingrid, but she certainly saved the day there, coming to Ragnar's rescue. Ragnar's now going to move away from the wall and head towards that skeleton that you can see on the north side of the battlefield. So he's going to move his movement, not all of it, but just to get, so he's got a nice shot, and he's going to make 2 ranged attacks. He has to beat the dexterity of the skeleton, which he does, and then the skeleton makes a saving roll, and that 0 is a 10, and the 6 doesn't count either. So that's going to take 2 damage, bringing it down to 2 hit points remaining, and then he gets to roll on the wound chart, and that's another point of damage, so that brings it down to just 1. So that was a great round for Ragnar. That skeleton's not happy, so he's going to move his full 6 inches, and he's going to roll to make a charge right into Ragnar to get some revenge. And with an 8, he's well in there, so he can move within base contact and now start the close combat action. He's going to get 2 attacks, plus 1 for the charge, and he only gets 1 hit though. So let's see what we do here. Ragnar rolls a 1, that's a critical save. That would be 2 saves, so if more than 1 hit got through, he would have saved them both. But now he gets to attack with his regular 2 attacks, and that's a good roll. That 1 is going to give him an extra hit, so that takes it to be 3 hits altogether. Let's see if the skeleton can save anything here as he rolls, and he's trying to get equal or less than his saving. stat, and here that 1 becomes a critical save, so that's 2, but it's not enough to keep him on the battlefield as he takes 1 hit, and that's going to remove his remaining hit point, and he's taken out of the battle. So that's a pretty successful round 1 for Ragnar and his crew. They've taken out all the NPC creatures, only 1 point of damage, so let's move into round 2 and see what's in store for them. We're going to go through the event table first, so we rolled a 1, and 1 snuck in. Now that minimum point total has gone up in 1 point, so now it's going to be 3.5 instead of 2.5. We're going to roll for the doors again, and then place them in the direction and distance denoted by the dice. Now we're going to roll for the NPCs, and this is an 18, so this is pretty high, and that's going to be a troll. We're going to get one of the big models on now, so this is going to be 3 points. And a 20, that's going to be another big one. That's a dragon, but this is going to be a giant at 4 points, and this is an acid-spitting dragon. Let's roll for the dragon first, and that's a 7, so that's going to go on the wall closest to the ranged model, and it hates the ranged model, so it's going to be coming right after Ragnar there, making sure to be 2 inches away from the other models. Now for the troll, and it's a 5. This will go on the wall closest to and hate support, which is going to be Inga the Witch, so that's also going to be that west wall, so the action's really building up here. The NPC is going to activate first, so it's going to do a little move. This is a ranged beast, so it's going to be attacking with sprays of acid as it flies across the battlefield. So it gets into a nice position, staying well away from those other models, and then it's going to roll 3 shooting attacks at range. Now it has to beat the dexterity of Ragnar. It does with 2, and one of them was a critical, so that's going to make 3 hits. Ragnar's going to roll, trying to beat his save characteristic, but he doesn't. He's going to take some serious damage there. In fact, he's going to take 3, and that's enough to remove him from the arena. So that's game over for Ragnar, and a big loss for the team. Now we're moving that cave troll. I should have put him inside rather than outside of the wall, so I've just removed him so it works, and he's 2 inches away from everything. And so now it's the turn of the player to activate. So Inga the Witch is going to move, get into a decent position, and she's going to use her power to try and help out with a time slip and protect spell. She fails the protect spell, but he does get that time slip token, which I'll explain later on. The second player model moves now and activates, and this time it's going to be Edgar, and he moves to get away from that dragon a bit and then makes a charge right into the cave troll. He makes 2 attacks plus 1 for charging. He's got to beat his fighting skill, and certainly does that, so all 3 of those attacks are going to hit, and then the troll gets to make a save roll. He saves 1, and he's going to take 2 points of damage, so 2 hit points go through, and because Edgar's armed, the cave troll is also going to have to make a roll on the wound chart, and we'll do that later on, because first the cave troll is going to fight back with 2 attacks. They both go through. Edgar needs to make a roll to save for those 2 hits that go in. He's got to beat his save characteristic, and those would have saved as his save characteristic is 3, but because the cave troll is a rampager, he's a -1 against his model's attack, so that's going to take it down to 1 save, and 1 hit goes through, so he's going to take a hit point as well. Both fighters are armed, so they'll both have to take a roll on the wound chart, and so it's a -2 in dexterity for the cave troll, but poor old Edgar's blinded, so he's going to have a little token just so we keep track of that and remember that he's blinded. So next activation, he's only going to be able to move. He's not going to be able to do anything else. He can't push the troll back, so he has to move back 2 inches. Time for the NPC to activate now, and that troll's going to try and get some revenge and come around to get back at Edgar. So he's going to move, get close enough to make a charge, and with a 6 he's well in there, gets in base contact, and now he can make 2 attacks plus 1 for the charge. He's got to beat his fighting skill, and for the troll it's 7, so very high. He makes 3 hits, and it's 3 saves. 1 is a critical save, so that's going to take 2 of those hits away, so just 1 hit goes through, so that's going to be a point of damage. But look at this, he's using that time slip token to make that failed roll a successful roll, so he doesn't take any damage at all in this round of combat. Edgar gets to retaliate, rolls 2 dice, but doesn't make any successful hits, so that's going to end the combat, and he's going to be pushed back 2 inches. Ingrid the Beast is going to make a nice long move around and come at that troll. So she's going to get within 2 inches, rolls for a charge, successfully makes it, and now it's more time for combat. She gets 1 attack plus 1 for charging. 1 hit goes through, the other one fails, so it's going to be 1 save to make from the troll, and he doesn't make it. So this is going to be more damage now. That's 1 point of damage, bringing him down to 1, and Ingrid is armed, so the troll will have to roll on the wound chart as well, and so for this it's going to be crushing teeth, and with a roll of 2 the troll is now disarmed. The troll now reacts and fights back with 2 rolls, 1, 2, that's going to be 3 hits altogether. That 1 is a critical hit, so we can add another hit there, so that's 3 saves for Ingrid to make, and she makes them all. But don't forget, it's -1, so that's going to turn that 2 into a 3. The 1 is going to remain a 1. The 3 is a 4, which fails, but that 1 makes it a successful critical hit, so no damage at all. Now all the NPCs and player models have activated. It's the end of round 2, so let's move into round 3 and see just how long they can survive. It's round 3, so we roll for the event table, and now spikes appear from the floor to every player model in the south half of the room. They're going to take 1 piercing wound chart roll with save. So let's roll for each of them, because there is 2 there. Actually, there's 3. So let's roll for Inga the Witch first. She gets 9, which is bleeding. See if she can make a save. Nope, she doesn't save it. So we're going to have to give her a bleeding token. Edgar with a 1. Nothing happens to him. And now finally Ingrid with a 5. Ingrid is going to be sliced. So that's going to be a -2. It doesn't save it. -2 to the fighting skill. Now let's roll for the walls and then follow the direction the dice are pointing in and the number of inches again. So this is opening it up a little bit, but still a little bit of cover if they want to use it. Now let's roll for the NPCs, and the first one is number 2, and that's going to be a bandit, and this is a ranged bandit. We've got to get up to 2 points here, so now let's roll again. This time it's a 7, and that's going to bring on a doppelganger. And we roll to see where the bandit's going to arrive. That's on the east wall, and it hates the closest model. The doppelganger is on the wall closest to and hates the ranged model. So we're going to move those around, put them in place, and now activate the first NPC creature, which is the troll, who's coming after Inga. But to get to her, he's going to have to go past Edgar. So he's going to make a charge into Edgar with a 10. He's well in there, gets within base contact, and now it's time for some close combat action. The troll makes the 2 attacks and 1 for charging, and that fighting skill of 7's really helping out as all 3 go through. Edgar rolls, and he's going to make 1 save, but don't forget, that changes it to -1 because of the ability of the troll. So yeah, no saves at all there. That's some serious damage for Edgar, but he can retaliate, and he makes 2 attacks. 1's a successful hit, so he gets an extra hit. 3 go through, 3 saves to make, and so this is going to be some serious damage for each model. And that takes them both out of the battle in a massive clash. They both get taken out. That's a big loss for the crew, though, with only Inga the Witch and Ingrid left in the fight. They've got to survive till the end of round 5, so let's see if they can do it. Inga the Witch is going to move. She's got that bleeding token, so she is going to take a point of damage for being activated, but she's going to use her combat phase to staunch the bleeding, so that won't affect her now for the rest of the game. The second player model is going to activate now, and that's Ingrid, who can make quite a big move with a 10-inch movement. She's going to get really close to that warrior there, so she's going to move up and now roll for a charge. With a 2, it's not going to get there, although she can add 2 to a charge. She chooses to re-roll anyway and gets a 7. She's got a re-roll ability, so that's really helpful for running and charging. Now she gets 1 attack, 1 for charging in. That 4's a successful hit, so the warrior's going to have to make a roll and doesn't save it. So there's going to be a bit of damage going on there. So that's 1 point of damage, bringing it down to 2 hit points remaining as it fights back with a successful hit. Let's see if Ingrid can save it, and she certainly does. So that's going to be no damage. She can't push him back, so she moves back 2 inches herself. He's not a warrior, he's a bandit, and so he's going to attack twice with the ranged attack. So he's going to make a movement first, though, just to make it a little bit more difficult for Ingrid, and also get within a little bit of cover in case any ranged attacks come at him. And he's going to make 2 rolls. One of the ranged attacks fails, but the other's a critical hit. So that's going to make 2 successful hits with 2 saves to make. That's terrible. That's a complete fail. And Ingrid is going to take 2 hit points, bringing her down to just 1 remaining. She also is going to have to roll on the wound chart for piercing. And let's see what that was. It's a 7 and a 7. The 2 hits went through, so it's 2 rolls, and she's blinded both times. Next activation, she can only move. Don't forget that big beast of a dragon is lurking behind that wall as he moves in, so he's got a clear line of sight on both models. And eyeing it up, he looks at Inga the Witch, whose dexterity is 4, so he's got to beat the 4 for a successful hit. Now 2 fail, so she could get away with this, but 1 goes through. She rolls to try and beat her save characteristic of 2 and fails miserably. She's going to take 1 point of damage and is going to have to roll on the wound chart. This acid is certainly going to burn as she now takes 2 burning tokens. In the next round, that's really going to hold her back, and so potentially could cause some extra damage. But now it's the turn of the doppelganger, and so that's going to make a movement of 6, and now it needs a 6-inch charge to make it. So it rolls the dice, and is the charge going to be enough? No, it fails the charge, and that's going to end round 3. So with still 2 of the crew in the fight, they could make it through round 4 and even round 5. So let's see what round 4 is going to bring as we move into the events table. On a 7, it's Vomit Note. Now we have to roll a d10 for each player model, and if the result is a 1 to 3, then they're going to have to throw up violently and be blinded. Inga the Witch passes the test, and Ingrid was blinded already anyway. Let's roll for those walls again, and then we'll move them around. And now look what's happened. It's really opened it up. There's line of sight everywhere. That dragon's going to get a shot at whoever it likes. And now we're going to have a look to see what other NPC creatures come onto the battlefield. So it's a forest golem coming in. So let's look out for that. Roll to see where it ends up, and we deploy it north, and it hates the closest model. It also starts with an extra hit point, so that's pretty handy. So we place that at the northern end of the board, and it's a long way off from the models. So that's a fortunate placement. But now the first NPC is going to activate, and it's that dragon. And that dragon is eyeing up Inga the Witch with that low dexterity. So with 3 dice, all 3 hit, and 1's a critical hit as well. So that's 4 go through. Inga has to make 4 saves of 2 or less. So this is going to be pretty difficult. She makes 2, but fails 2. So she is going to take some damage, and also because it's acid, it adds 1 to each roll, so she doesn't actually make any saves at all. So she takes 4 points of damage, and that's definitely going to be enough to remove her from the game. It's game over for Inga the Witch, and now everything is going to rely on Ingrid. Can she survive until the end of round 5? Let's find out, as it's now time for Ingrid to activate. She's blinded, so she can only move now this activation, but sneaks behind that wall to try and take some cover and respite and see if she can just make it to the end of the round. But that doppelganger is eyeing her up. He's got a 6-inch movement, so needs a pretty good charge roll here. So let's see what it gets. And with a 7, that's just enough to get within range, and yet it's going to be in base contact. And now can it take that remaining wound away from Ingrid and win the game for the NPCs? So with 2 attacks and 1 for charging, 1 hits, another hit's critical, and so that's going to make 3 hits altogether. So now that's 3 saves that Ingrid needs to make of 3 or less to stay in the game. And with a roll of a 1, 4 and 7, that 1's a critical save, so 2 are going to be saved, but she is going to fail 1, and so that means that final hit point is going to be removed. Ingrid takes a quick snap back, but fails completely. So that's it. It's game over for Ingrid, and Ragnar and the crew have all been taken out, so the victory goes to The NPCs, and so with 4 left on the battlefield, they really did dominate. Some didn't even get in the action. That forest golem was able to stay up there and didn't even get to move. So no round 5, no victory for Ragnar and the crew, and so we don't have to go through this gauntlet finale where we would check to see how many are remaining and the condition they're in and decide whether or not they would go on to a further 1 or 2 rounds. It was pretty tough for Ragnar and the crew once that dragon came on. It really dominated the arena. And so, yeah, a big challenge. They nearly made it, though. If Ingrid could have hung on a little bit longer and got a good vantage point behind some walls, she could have survived. But it wasn't to be. That dragon was super powerful. And that doppelganger getting that good charge at the end did the serious damage that was needed. But they didn't go down without a fight. They took out the lion, the skeleton, and that rock troll. So not bad at all. Edgar was pretty tough against that troll and held his ground really well. All up, lots of action. Could have gone either way, but I think with those big models coming in early on, it made it pretty tough for Ragnar and his crew. I hope you enjoyed watching this Bestiary and Gauntlet mode. It was great fun to play, and I love having all those different NPC creatures to choose from. You're going to be working from a couple of books here, so I recommend getting some post-it notes just so you can get to the pages really quickly. Certainly when you start getting lots of the NPC creatures on, you want to be flicking back and forth to their stat lines. And then I've just highlighted in some of the books as well, just to make it easier when I'm going through the different stages so I can get the rules really quickly. So once you've done that, it's going to be really easy to go back and forth. And then I've also taken the wound chart and put that separately, so I don't go in the book to find it. I can literally just grab it, put it next to the board, and then roll on it straight away. Next week, I'm going to be covering another expansion book for Brutality, the Skirmish Wargame. This time it's going to be the Narrative Missions Module 1. And if you're interested in finding more out about Brutality, I've also done a book review of the main core book and a battle report. I've done the solo rules overview, going into detail about how that works, and I've done a solo battle report as well. That was super fun, going up against all these goblins. Then I did an overview of the Bestiary Gauntlet and today's battle report. So next week I'll go over that expansion book, and then the following week I'll do another battle report, so we start going through some campaign mission play. If you'd like to find out more about the game and pick up a copy of the books yourself, I'll put some links in the description below that will take you to the website and the Facebook page for Brutality, where you can get all the information and all the links to download the books that you like. I hope you enjoyed the battle report, and thanks so much for watching. Please hit the like button if you liked it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make these daily videos possible, and if you're interested in joining the community, it'd be awesome to see you there, and I'll put a link for that in the description down below.